Don't share this with anyone, okay? A millionaire finds himself in a difficult situation, gets a lovely lady pregnant, and sadly, she is left out in the cold. Years later, he faces an unexpected surprise. Hey there, welcome. Enjoy the wonderful content. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, and turn on those notifications so you can catch all the stories. The warm autumn sun cast a golden glow over the streets of Manhattan, reflecting beautifully off the skyscraper windows that reached high into the clear blue sky. In the lively financial district, Le Bernard Dan, one of the city's most exclusive dining spots, was all set to greet its esteemed lunchtime guests. Peter Carter, a young and ambitious real estate tycoon, walked in with the air of someone who was right at home in any setting. His sharp Italian suit and elegant Patek Philippe watch said a lot about his success. Yet, there was a flicker of unease in his blue eyes that didn't quite match his polished exterior. Kara Johnson, a stunning black woman with elegant grace, was patiently waiting for him at a cozy table tucked away in the corner. Her red dress beautifully highlighted her dark skin, and her eyes sparkled with a mix of nervousness and determination. As Peter approached, she rose gracefully to greet him, and they shared a brief, tense kiss. "Kara," Peter began, his voice soft yet firm, sensing that whatever he had to say couldn't possibly wait. Kara inhaled deeply, her hands trembling just a little as she reached for her bag. "Peter, I have something to show you." The restaurant around them buzzed elegantly with life. Waiters moved gracefully between tables, serving exquisite dishes and fine wines. Just a few tables away, a middle-aged couple animatedly chatted about their upcoming trip to Tuscany. Laughter erupted from a group of executives at a larger table, sharing inside jokes and good spirits. Meanwhile, no one seemed to notice the quiet tension building in the corner. Finally, Kara pulled a small object from her bag and placed it on the table. As Peter looked down, his face paled noticeably when he recognized the pregnancy test. Two unmistakable pink lines stared back at him, bold and accusatory. "I'm pregnant, Peter," Kara whispered, her voice barely rising above the gentle clatter of cutlery and whispers around them. Time felt like it stopped for Peter. His perfectly structured world began to unravel before him. A whirlwind of scandalous headlines, disapproving glances from his peers, and his father's disappointed expression raced through his mind. "This can't be happening," he murmured, more to himself than to Kara. "We were so careful. You said you were taking a pill?" Kara felt a little sting from the subtle accusation in his tone. "I was, but you know that no method is ever 100% effective. Peter, I realized this wasn't part of our plans, but plans change." Peter cut her off, his voice rising a tad, glancing around as if he were being watched before leaning in closer. "Kara, we don't really have solid plans right now. That was simply an adventure." The words struck Kara like a sudden surprise. She straightened up, her eyes sparkling with unshed tears. "An adventure? Is that truly how you see me after everything we've experienced together in the past few months?" Peter ran a hand through his tousled hair, frustration and worry clear on his face. "You know what I mean, Kara, just think it through. You work for me. Well, you know my identity, my family, my business. That would—" Peter ran a hand through his tousled hair, frustration and worry clear on his face. "You know what I mean, Kara, just think it through. You work for me. Well, you know my identity, my family, my business. That would change everything." Kara gazed at him in disbelief. "And what do you propose I do? Peter, this isn't solely about you or your esteemed reputation. There's a little life growing inside me, our life." The silence that followed felt overwhelmingly loud. Around them, the restaurant continued its lively symphony of business lunches and social gatherings, completely unaware of the emotional scene unfolding within its walls. Peter glanced again at the pregnancy test, almost as if he believed it would change magically if he stared long enough. Finally, he spoke, his voice chilly and distant. "I need some time to think. This is too much to take in right now." With those words, he stood up suddenly, nearly knocking over his chair without a backward glance. Peter hurriedly left the restaurant, leaving Kara alone with the pregnancy test and a heart full of sorrow. Kara remained there, frozen as quiet tears began to stream down her cheeks. She placed a gentle hand over her still flat belly, a fierce determination slowly replacing the pain in her gaze. "Don't worry, little one," she whispered. "Mommy will always take care of you, no matter what." Peter Carter's office on the 50th floor of a skyscraper in Manhattan provided a breathtaking view of the city that never sleeps. But that afternoon, Peter barely noticed the vibrant urban scene in front of him. His eyes were locked on a distant point, his mind a whirlwind of mixed emotions. The phone on his desk rang for the 5th time in an hour. He glanced at the caller ID, Kara, letting out a heavy sigh, then let the call go to voicemail. "The silence is quite loud, Mr. Carter." His assistant brought him back to reality. "Your family is waiting for you at the restaurant for your brother's engagement dinner." Peter softly cursed, realizing he had completely forgotten. "Thanks, Rachel. Tell the driver I'll be down in 5 minutes." As he got ready to leave, Peter thought about the irony of it all. His younger brother was about to announce his engagement to a senator's daughter, which his father deemed a perfect match. Meanwhile, he was hiding a secret that could shake their family's foundation. While heading to Per Se, Peter finally listened to Kara's voice message. "Peter, we need to talk. You can't ignore this. I need to know your thoughts and what we'll do next." Her emotional voice made Peter feel guilty. He remembered their special moments. Kara was more than just an employee to him. She was smart and strong, but he felt paralyzed by fear of the repercussions. At the restaurant, the Carter family was gathered in a private room. Peter's father, William, noticed his son's late arrival with a raised eyebrow. "Peter, how nice of you to join us," William said, hinting that his tardiness was noted. Dinner was filled with business talk and social gossip. Peter's brother Brian and his fiancée Allison were the stars of the evening, discussing wedding plans and political ties. "What about you?" Peter's mom, Elizabeth, asked during a lull. "When will we see you settled down with someone nice?" Peter nearly choked on his wine, reminding her he was focused on the company. "Nonsense," his father chimed in. "A man in your position needs a suitable wife. I'm sure we can arrange some promising dates." His father's words echoed in Peter's mind, mixing with the memory of Kara's voice. Two realities colliding, two lives that seemed incompatible. After dinner, as everyone was saying their goodbyes, William pulled Peter aside. "Son, you seem distracted. Is there something you want to tell me?" For a moment, Peter thought about telling his dad everything, but he held back. "Just work and stress," he told William, who seemed doubtful. Peter felt the weight of his dad's words about family reputation. Driving home, he poured a whiskey and looked at the sparkling city below before texting Kara to meet him. After sending the message, he felt both relief and dread, knowing tomorrow's decision would be life-changing. He took a last sip of whiskey, getting ready for a restless night, and before dawn, Kara arrived at the quiet Carter Enterprises building. Kara nervously adjusted her handbag in the elevator, noticing her tired reflection and trying to calm her nerves. On the 50th floor, Peter waited by the window and turned around when he heard the door open. "Kara," he said, his voice steady but tense. "Peter," she replied, keeping her cool. "I'm here as you asked?" The heavy silence filled the room with unspoken feelings. Peter motioned for her to sit, and she did, keeping her gaze on him as he fidgeted with his hands. "I've thought a lot about us," Peter began, choosing his words carefully. "You have to understand this isn't easy for me." "And you think it's easy for me?" Kara countered, her voice shaking. "This happened, and we have to deal with it together." Peter closed his eyes to gather his thoughts, then opened them with an unfamiliar coldness. "There can't be in U.S., Kara, not in this situation." Kara felt crushed by his words as she stood up, the chair scraping against the floor. "What are you saying?" she asked. "I can't be the father of this child. My family and everything I've built are at risk." Kara couldn't believe Peter was abandoning them. Peter looked away, hurt by Kara's pain. He offered financial help, but that was all he could do. Kara was upset and questioned if Peter thought money could fix everything. Peter tried to soothe her, expressing that he wanted the best for everyone. Kara yelled, insisting it was only what was best for him. Tears streamed down her face, but she was fierce. She had believed their love was unique and was deeply disappointed in him. Peter felt torn but stood by his decision. Kara realized he wasn't the man she needed. She grabbed her bag and prepared to leave. She told him she didn't want his money or help and would raise their child alone with true love. Kara left, leaving Peter to deal with his choices. The sound of the door closing marked a turning point in their lives. Peter sat down, overwhelmed by the weight of his decision. Outside, the sun rose over New York, unaffected by their heartache, as their paths diverged. 5 years later, Kara woke up to her daughter's laughter. She smiled, enjoying the peaceful moment. When she got up, her daughter Zoe was joyfully playing nearby. Kara greeted her with a hug, noticing Zoe's resemblance to her. Zoe excitedly asked if today was the big day. Kara nodded, feeling proud. As they got ready for the day, Kara thought about her journey after leaving Carter Enterprises. She had faced tough times but grew stronger through the challenges. With support from friends and her community, Kara not only managed but excelled. She went back to school, earned her social work degree, and began community projects. Her drive to assist single mothers and vulnerable families inspired her to start her own nonprofit. The community center opening that day was the result of her hard work, providing essential services like daycare and job training. Meanwhile, Peter was preparing for work in his fancy apartment with a view of Central Park. He appeared successful, but his eyes revealed feelings of regret and solitude. Over the past 5 years, Peter had grown the family business, becoming a corporate leader. Yet, he still felt a void that success couldn't fill. His mother's call reminded him of an important dinner with his father later. Peter sighed but assured her he would attend. After hanging up, he noticed a news article about a new support center in the Bronx. Seeing Kara Johnson's name as the founder made his heart skip a beat. Peter thought about visiting the center to see her achievements but hesitated due to past fears. Meanwhile, in the Bronx, Kara and Zoe arrived downtown to a cheerful crowd. Kara recognized many supportive faces among the smiling attendees. A young mother, Mrs. Johnson, thanked Kara, saying the center would change many lives. Kara felt touched and replied, emphasizing their commitment to supporting one another. As she got ready for her opening speech, Kara noticed Zoe, who looked on proudly. At that moment, Kara felt she had made the right choice. The journey was tough but led her to the right place. With Zoe and her community, Kara felt unstoppable. The future sparkled with possibilities, and as she cut the ribbon, she knew it was just the start of something amazing. The Plaza Hotel's ballroom glimmered with elegance, and jazz filled the air during the Carter Foundation's gala. Peter Carter, looking sharp in his tuxedo, mingled with a practiced smile. To everyone, he seemed like the perfect success story. Yet he felt restless inside. Suddenly, his mother Elizabeth's voice broke through the crowd, introducing Olivia, a recent Yale graduate. Peter sighed inwardly at yet another matchmaking attempt from his mom. He smiled at Olivia, but his mind drifted elsewhere. Meanwhile, in the Bronx, Kara's community center buzzed with life, families enjoying dinner, and children laughing. Kara, with Zoe by her side, beamed at the joyful scene. This was her world, filled with love and purpose despite its challenges. Kara called over Darlene, a volunteer, to help with a situation involving Mrs. Rodriguez. Crouching to Zoe's level, she explained she needed to assist someone. Zoe, wise beyond her years, encouraged her mom to go help. In the office, Kara found Mrs. Rodriguez in tears. Gently, Kara asked what was wrong. Elena shared her job loss and looming eviction. Kara listened with empathy, fully understanding the struggle against an unhelpful system. She reassured Elena, holding her hands, that they would work it out together. Back at the gala, Peter was approached by his father, William, who wanted to discuss the company's future. Peter followed him to a quieter spot, where William spoke about company plans and urged Peter to settle down for stability. However, Peter was distracted by a news report playing in the bar that showed Kara and their daughter. William's voice snapped Peter back to reality, and he excused himself to get some fresh air. Stepping out onto the balcony, he felt a sense of emptiness triggered by seeing Kara and their child. Meanwhile, at the community center, Kara calmed Elena and devised a plan. Feeling accomplished, she reunited with Zoe, who asked if she helped someone in need. Kara happily affirmed that they help each other. As she looked around at the families and the sense of community, Kara felt grateful for her life filled with purpose and love. That night, Peter and Kara contemplated their different lives, one filled with luxury yet emptiness, the other rich in meaning and service, as they were on paths set to cross again. With autumn in New York, Peter wandered through Central Park, his mind elsewhere amid thoughts of executives and deals. Since the gala night, seeing Kara and their daughter on TV had left Peter feeling a void in his life. His long-neglected emptiness was now demanding attention. When his phone vibrated with a reminder for a school council meeting, he felt puzzled but decided to attend. Upon entering the auditorium in the Bronx, Peter was pleasantly surprised by the vibrant atmosphere. Kara confidently presented a new mentoring program while a young girl helped with the slides. Peter recognized the girl as his daughter Zoe, who resembled Kara but carried his own smile. During the Q&A, Peter nervously asked how outsiders could help. Kara recognized him with surprise but quickly assured him that all help was welcome and that they could discuss options afterward. Peter was mesmerized by Kara and Zoe's teamwork throughout the meeting, eagerly waiting for the crowd to leave. When Kara approached him with Zoe, she seemed cautious and surprised, prompting Zoe to ask who Peter was. Kara asked Zoe to help someone else, and Peter complimented Zoe's resemblance to Kara. Kara defensively asked Peter what he wanted after all these years. Peter admitted he couldn't stop thinking about Kara and praised her work. Kara remained cautious and wanted to know why he was there now. Peter nervously expressed that seeing them made him realize he had made a mistake. Kara studied him carefully, and Peter interrupted her, acknowledging he had no right to ask for anything but pleading with her. "Give me a chance to reconnect with my daughter." The silence was filled with deep emotions. Kara watched Zoe laughing and then turned to Peter. "I can't decide this alone." Kara finally spoke. "I need to think about what's best for Zoe." Peter nodded, understanding the seriousness. "I respect that. Can I give you my number for when you want to chat?" Kara thought for a moment but eventually said yes. Exchanging numbers felt like opening a long-closed door. What happens next is uncertain, but it's clear Peter, Kara, and Zoe's lives were about to change again. Autumn in New York was beautiful, with vibrant colors in Bronx Park. Kara walked slowly while Zoe happily skipped ahead, collecting leaves. "Look, Mom!" Zoe said, showing a bright red leaf. Kara smiled but was lost in thought. Since meeting Peter, she felt a whirlwind of emotions, anger, confusion, and a bit of hope tangled in her heart. "Mom?" Zoe's voice pulled her back to reality. "Are you sad?" Kara knelt to meet her daughter's gaze. "No, sweetheart, just thinking of someone from school." Zoe surprised Kara with her understanding. Kara hesitated, unsure how to respond. "I've known him a long time," she finally said. Zoe looked thoughtful. "He seemed to make you sad." Kara hugged her daughter, filled with love and protectiveness. "Sometimes past people can bring back tricky memories, but Mommy's okay." Meanwhile, Peter was in his office, looking at Kara's number on his phone. He hesitated to call when his father knocked on the door. William said they needed to talk, his tone serious. Peter put the phone down, trying to calm his nerves. "Of course, Dad, what's up?" William's gaze was intense, watching Peter closely. "You seem distracted, and I've heard rumors about you being in the Bronx." Peter felt a wave of dread. He knew his dad had a vast network. "I was just looking into charity work," Peter lied, feeling guilty about it. William studied him carefully. "Peter, you are the bright future of this wonderful company. It's really important to stay focused and not let past distractions get in the way, especially when they are a little tricky." Peter felt a chill run through him. "What do you mean by that?" "Please don't tease me, son," William said with a tense expression. "I'm aware of Kara Johnson and her child." Peter jumped up, the chair making a sound as it scraped the floor. "I always believed you'd handle this situation," William continued. William said, his tone icy. "I thought you would have sorted this out a long time ago. It seems I was mistaken." A surge of frustration welled up inside Peter. He took a deep breath. "Dad, this is about my daughter, a daughter you decided not to recognize," William snapped. "And honestly, think about the implications, Peter. The impact it could have on the company, on our family." Peter looked deeply at his father, truly seeing him for the first time. The man he had always looked up to and feared now appeared small and inconsequential. "Maybe," Peter said thoughtfully. "Perhaps the company and our family could use a bit of scandal, a touch of realness." William stood up, his face flushed with anger. "Don't be ridiculous. Peter, you have duties to fulfill, a legacy to preserve." But Peter was no longer paying attention. His eyes wandered to a photo on his desk of a younger version of himself, beaming next to his father on a golf course. The picture of success and privilege suddenly felt hollow, devoid of real meaning. "I think it's time for me to rethink what legacy truly means, Dad," Peter said softly. While William continued to speak, full of threats and arguments, Peter picked up his phone, feeling a sense of clarity he hadn't experienced in ages. He typed out a message to Kara. "Can we chat? I'm ready to do what's right for Zoe and for all of us." As he hit send, Peter felt as if a huge burden had been lifted from him. The future might be a bit unclear, but for the first time in a long while, he felt a spark of hope. Prospect Park in Brooklyn was bustling with families cherishing a delightful sunny fall day. Among them, Kara and Zoe strolled hand in hand, the worry on Kara's face contrasting with her daughter's joyful curiosity. "Mom, why are we here? It's not our usual park," Zoe asked with her bright, inquisitive eyes, taking in the new surroundings. Kara took a calming breath, searching for just the right words. "Remember that man we met at school? Peter? Well, he wanted to have a chat with us today." Zoe's eyes sparkled with interest. "Is he a friend of yours?" "It's a bit complicated, sweetheart," Kara replied, feeling the weight of years of secrets and tough choices looming in the air. They noticed Peter sitting on a bench, looking as anxious as Kara felt. When he spotted them, he stood up with a shy smile. "Kara, Zoe," he greeted, his voice a little shaky. "Thank you so much for coming." Kara nodded with a bit of tension, while Zoe looked back and forth between the two adults, sensing the unease. As Peter knelt down to match Zoe's eye level, he said, "I have something really important to share with you." Kara's heart raced. They had talked about this over the phone, but now that he was about to share the truth, it felt incredibly real. "A while ago," Peter continued softly, "your mother and I met. Well, I'm your father, Zoe." The silence that followed felt thunderous. Zoe glanced at Peter and then at Kara, her young mind trying to make sense of it all. "But you were never here," Zoe finally murmured, her voice tiny and perplexed. The sorrow on Peter's face was clear. "I know, and I'm truly sorry for that. I made a huge mistake by not being in your life, but I'm here now if you can give me a chance." Kara watched the exchange, her heart aching for her daughter's confusion and Peter's evident remorse. Part of her wanted to shield Zoe from the hurt, but knew this moment was pivotal. Zoe's innocent question hit Kara like a wave of emotion. She knelt down to hug Zoe tightly. "Darling, it's not that easy. We really need to talk about this, all of us." Peter nodded, understanding Kara's careful approach. "I understand that I can't just walk into your lives and expect everything to be fine, but I'm willing to do whatever it takes to earn a place here." The rest of the afternoon passed in a mixture of tense conversations and moments of hesitant connection. Zoe, although confused, was curious about this new father in her life. Kara watched every interaction with a mix of apprehension and reluctant hope. As the sun began to set, tinting the Brooklyn sky with shades of orange and pink, the three of them prepared to leave. Peter knelt down again in front of Zoe. "Can I give you a hug?" he asked. Softly, Zoe glanced at Kara, who gave a tiny nod in return. The hug they shared was quick and a bit awkward, yet it was filled with so much feeling. As Kara and Zoe strolled away, Peter watched them depart, his heart brimming with a mix of regret for the time lost and hope for what's to come. He realized that the journey ahead might be long and challenging, but for the first time in years, he felt like he was moving in the right direction. Winter arrived in New York with an unexpected intensity. A snowstorm blanketed the city, transforming the streets into quiet white pathways. Inside Kara's cozy apartment in the Bronx, the warmth from the heater contrasted sharply with the chilly distance that had grown between her and Peter. "You can't just show up and expect to take Zoe to spend Christmas with your family," Kara exclaimed, her voice trembling with a mix of anger and concern. "She hardly knows you." Peter ran a hand through his hair, feeling frustrated. "I know, Kara, but they're her family too. My parents would love to meet her." "Your parents?" Kara let out a bitter laugh. "The same ones who made you leave me 10 years ago." The silence that followed was thick with years of unspoken pain. In the next room, Zoe pretended to be asleep, but every word traveled through the thin walls of the apartment. "I've made mistakes, Kara," Peter finally said, his voice soft. "Terrible mistakes, but I'm trying to make things right now." Kara looked at him, years of struggle and loneliness reflected in her eyes. "What if it can't be fixed? Peter, what if it's too late?" Before Peter could reply, a scream from Zoe's room broke the tension. They both hurried there, finding the girl sitting on the bed, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Zoe, honey, what's wrong?" Kara asked as she sat down next to her daughter, who was sobbing. Zoe managed to say, "I don't want you to fight over me." Kara's heart shattered hearing those words. Peter, standing in the doorway, looked just as heartbroken. "Oh, my love." Kara hugged Zoe tightly. "It's not your fault. None of this is your fault." Peter approached cautiously, kneeling beside the bed. "Zoe, your mother is right. We adults sometimes make things complicated, but this isn't your fault." Spring blossomed in New York, bringing a sense of renewal to Central Park. The cherry trees were in full bloom, their pink petals gracefully twirling in the breeze. Kara, Peter, and Zoe strolled together along the park's winding paths, an unlikely trio brought together by love and time. Zoe dashed ahead, her laughter ringing in the air while Kara and Peter followed, their steps in gentle sync. "I still can't believe she won the school essay competition," Kara said, beaming with pride as she watched Zoe. Peter smiled, his eyes sparkling. "She has your intelligence and determination, Kara, and your passion for social justice." Kara glanced at Peter, noticing the subtle changes in him over the last few months. The arrogant, fearful man she had met years ago had given way to someone more humble, more compassionate. "You played a part in that too, Peter," she admitted softly. "Your support for the community center and the writing classes you gave made a big difference." Peter stopped, turning to face her. "I want to thank you for giving me a second chance, for allowing me to be a part of your lives." Kara felt a little lump in her throat. The past few months had been quite a ride. There had been disagreements, misunderstandings, and moments of uncertainty, but there had also been joy, discoveries, and the gradual creation of trust. "It wasn't easy," she said with a sigh. "Honestly, there were moments when I thought about giving up and sending you away." Peter nodded with understanding. "I know, and I would have totally understood if you had. But seeing you with Zoe and noticing how you've changed, it truly meant a lot to me." Before Peter could respond, Zoe came dashing back, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Mommy, Daddy, look what I found!" she chimed, proudly showing a small white flower in her hand. The word Daddy still felt new and made Peter's heart skip a beat. He knelt down, examining the flower with exaggerated curiosity. "Wow, that's so beautiful, Zoe! Do you have any idea what this flower is?" Zoe frowned in deep thought. "No, but it seems special." Kara joined them, recognizing the flower instantly. "It's a wild daisy, sweetheart. They're quite hardy and grow in the most unexpected places, just like us," Peter said gently, looking at Kara and Zoe. Their moment of connection was interrupted by the sound of Peter's phone. He took it out of his pocket, his expression turning serious as he glanced at the name on the screen. "It's my dad," he told Kara, who nodded in understanding. Peter answered, stepping aside a little to talk. Kara and Zoe watched with a bit of tension. Peter's relationship with his family had been rocky ever since he chose to publicly acknowledge Zoe. When he returned, there was a tentative smile on his face. "They'd like to invite us for lunch next weekend, all of us." Kara felt a rush of anxiety, but seeing the hope in Peter's eyes and the curiosity in Zoe's, she nodded with a smile. "I think we can give it a shot." Zoe, sensing the importance of the moment, took both her parents' hands and said, "Let's be like the daisy, right? Strong, no matter what." Kara and Peter exchanged glances, years of shared experiences, pain, and hope passing between them in an instant. "Yes, darling," Kara said, giving Zoe's hand a loving squeeze. "We'll be just like the daisy." As they strolled back, the afternoon sun wrapped the park in a warm, golden glow. Kara looked at Peter and Zoe, feeling a wave of gratitude wash over her. The path ahead was still a bit uncertain, filled with challenges and endless possibilities. But for the first time in quite a while, she felt genuinely hopeful about the future together, as an unlikely but resilient family. They walked toward a new chapter in their lives, ready to embrace whatever adventures awaited them. Zoe looked at Peter, her eyes still shimmering with tears. "Are you leaving again?" The question hit Peter like a punch in the gut. He looked at Kara, seeking permission before answering. "No, Zoe, I'm not leaving. I promise I'll be here no matter what." Kara felt a mixture of emotions when she heard these words. Part of her wanted to believe while another part feared opening herself up to pain again. Can we be a family?" Zoe asked timidly. The silence that followed was deafening. Kara and Peter exchanged glances, years of unspoken history passing between them. Finally, Kara spoke. "Zoe, family is complicated, but what matters is that we all love you very much." Peter nodded, adding softly, "And we'll work together to do what's best for you, always." As Zoe was gently comforted, the storm outside started to calm down. The first gentle beams of the morning sun peeked through the clouds, creating a lovely glow on the newly fallen snow. Kara glanced out the window. Then she turned to Peter and Zoe, perhaps thinking that, like the storm, this tough time would eventually pass. And maybe, just maybe, something wonderful could emerge from the remnants of the past. If you were in Kara's shoes, do you think you could find it in your heart to forgive Peter and let him be a part of Zoe's life after a decade away? We'd love to hear your thoughts in the comments. Thank you for tuning in. If you liked the story, we would be so grateful if you subscribed to our channel and shared your thoughts in the comments below. Your feedback and encouragement truly mean the world to us. Stay connected for more thrilling adventures.